Welcome to whatever the fuck it is we do here. Which is listening to stuff predominantly metal and giving some thoughts on it. Don't know how in depth it's going to be. It just depends on what happens. Read this intro ever. So
yeah.
In this video, we are checking out another viewer request from the pit, and this is provided by Jordan Pax 2218. I feel like we've done a request from him before.
It's possible.
I don't know, we get so many requests I can't keep them in track anymore. But this is Slapshock, and this one is Adios. Alrighty, I think we got the gist of that, but my god, I would be so astonished if not in some manner they weren't influenced by Mudvayne.
I could see that in this song, yeah. Now, I don't know, maybe it's just my headset, but and I'm sure Pincushion will be able to say more, but I feel like the mixing on this was a mess.
There were aspects of it because I was really honing in on it because they actually mixed it in such a way I was able to hear a lot.
Well, here was my issues. Number one, especially in the first half of the song, the vocals were too high. At least on my headset. Like to the point to where when he was singing, I could not even at all.
It could have been the transition from Discord.
It's possible. I don't know, but it was like the vocals were just so overpowering that I literally couldn't hear anything else except for when he was quiet. Now the second half of the song, it came down. Like I could actually hear him and the instruments at the same time.
Give me just a moment. Sorry, give me just a moment. It is a little, just a touch louder than I would have typically made it, but not far off from how I would have personally mixed it.
And the other thing I noticed, again, could be the headset or how it's coming through Discord, is the guitars felt somewhat muddy.
That's because,
and even the drums sounded a little off.
Okay, so I'll be able to explain all that once we get to my part.
Yeah, and like I said, it could just be my headset, but maybe you know where I'm coming from. I don't know, but
I know it's now causing it. Yeah.
Now that being said, if it had been cleaner, I've been able to hear it cleaner. The tuning that they had felt pretty old school to me. It reminded me a lot of like 90s, early 2000s type thing.
Yeah, I'll be able to touch base on that.
Yeah. But despite that, I could definitely see where you get the Mudvayne in there for sure. Overall, it wasn't bad. I mean, other than that, like it's a song, especially if you know the language. I could see it being an earworm, something that would get stuck in your head. And you find yourself singing it the next day, you're thinking about it. But, so I mean, musically, if it had been clear, I thought it was pretty solid. Vocally, it was okay. It just, for me, I don't know if, like I said, it was my headset or come through Discord or whatever, but it just, more so than most songs we listened to, it was just, I don't know, it just, it sounded off. Despite all that, I thought it was decent.
Alrighty. What about you, Ben?
I'll agree. I think it's got to be something with Discord. Just the way we hear it through Discord, because like to me it sounds like when you were first getting into audio engineering, and you would send me like
shitty mixes, guy.
Your earlier shittier mixes of stuff, and things were slightly off, and so God, that's kind of what. So I definitely get what Doppler's getting at there. So I think it has to be something with Discord. But I mean, other than that, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, it kind of sounds like, yeah, I definitely agree. It definitely had the sound of Mudvayne, and I mean, musically, it was pretty intriguing. Lyrically, it was pretty intriguing. Or vocally, it was pretty intriguing. Lyrically, I couldn't fucking understand it because different language, but. Yeah, no, I don't know what else to say there.
Okay, that works. So, here's the part where I'll be able to get some in-depth analysis. So,
30 minutes later.
You can fucking dude.
I was about to say, buckle your seatbelt, everybody.
Big ride. No, so the aspects of whenever I say I'd be surprised they weren't influenced by Mudvayne. The way it was composed reminded me so much of Mudvayne. The way the guy's vocals and how he sang reminded me a lot of how Chad does his, at least within how he did it in Mudvayne in the earlier years. As far as the big topic in this one, the production. So, it was a little bit more on the thinner side, not by a lot, but a little bit on the thinner side The guitars crazily scooped. Like, that guitar sound was very scooped, and because of that, regardless, within this genre, where you're doing some kind of past grunge, like edge of grunge onto more so new metal, you're the massive chunk of your, like, what gives you that oomph is going to be within the low end on the kick, and you've got to give the bass power. Now, I will say they did really good at giving the mid-range and the high end on the bass, like some of the distorted aspects, they did well in getting that through to where it could sit reasonably on a level of the guitars, because I could hear it, which back in the day, it's like, unless you were doing pretty much slap bass like Fieldy was back in the day, like, there's not a lot within nu metal where you are, like, really able to hear necessarily the string attacks on the bass, but you had a shit ton of the low end, and that's where this lacked a lot. Was it needed a good amount of more low end than it was presenting in the bass for it to be able to carry this piece the way I think that they were intending. I don't know when this was produced. This could have been an older track, so that could bring merit to why it sounded the way it did. Some of the drums were kind of on the thinner side. Like, the snare actually was done fairly well, but I would have liked to hear a good amount more snappiness in that snare, because it did kind of sound like you had just this rubber pad with some, like, a paper bag over it, and you were hitting it, and there was some snare aspect to it. So it would have, like, I would have really liked to have, like, heard a, like, you can go heavy on the compressor with snares, or a little bit heavier, so you can get that good snap out of it. The kick definitely needed some more oomph in it to really be able to just hit a little bit harder. The bass definitely needed some more power in the low end to be able to also carry or help carry the scooped sound on the guitars, just because there wasn't a whole lot of mid-range in them, with the exception of the higher mid-range that you would have found, like, within, like, just the earlier days of nu metal, or even going into Pantera with Dimebag. You really need that bass to carry that and really have this fullness, but that's where things can get tricky, because you can't go too much, or else the mix just entirely sounds muddy. So, and too much muddiness can be a bad thing. Having a good amount of muddiness makes for a great mix. It does. But, and this been a lot of my issue recently with modern metal, is it gets too cleaned up and it just doesn't sound heavy like it did in the old days, circa millennia, we'll say. The stereo image on the drums overall, though, were pretty solid, and stereo image on the guitars were even really good, just as well as the vocals. But they lacked a lot of the low end, which is going to bring out the life and really give some groove to what I can hear this is trying to be. I don't know who mixed this. It would be very fascinating to know who did and when it was. But if the muddiness from what you're hearing is probably more so because there's, aside from a lot of distortion in the high end on the guitars, it's probably going to come across as muddy because there's not too much mid-range information to carry over. But that's just from what I could hear on it. But I did appreciate that there wasn't a whole lot of stuff going on, just so I could hear everything, and it wasn't a fucking wall of sound like we get these days. That's my big problem with walls of sound, is like, yeah, it sounds big, but it's like, can you discern anything being played in it? Maybe you can, I don't know. But most of the days for me, I can't tell what the fuck's being played, just because, for one thing, everything being quad tracked, so it's like the guitars are way bigger than they typically would be, and then it's like the bass just doesn't do the way it should for me. So, but that was a very long-winded way to say you've got a good direction on the production, but it could have been done differently, and it probably should have been done differently, but it's still not terrible. Composition was awesome on this. I absolutely loved it. Vocals were done very well, and yeah, I got really nothing but mostly good things to say about this. So yeah, take it for what it's worth. So hopefully some of that explanation was able to, at least for Doppler, be able to understand exactly what could have been going on and what he was hearing, as well as potentially Frosty. But yeah, But until next time, whether musically, lyrically, or literally, keep rolling happy.